Deep beneath the waves, in the crushing blackness of the abyss, a controversial gold rush is on the verge of beginning. It's a hunt for riches that could power our next generation of technology, but it comes with a potential cost. We are only now starting to grasp. The future of our oceans, one of the last vast, untouched frontiers on Earth, isn't being decided in a high-tech lab or on a research vessel. Instead, its fate is being shaped right now in meeting rooms and behind closed doors in Kingston, Jamaica. This is the story of the global fight for the largest untapped resource on the planet, and how a series of decisions made on this one island could change our world forever. The story starts in Jamaica, which is home to the International Seabed Authority, or ISA. This is the UN-affiliated organization with the immense responsibility of governing the deep ocean floor in international waters, an area that's legally designated as the common heritage of humankind. For decades, its work was pretty obscure, known mostly to a handful of diplomats and scientists. But now, it's the unlikely epicenter of a global conflict. On one side, you have a handful of companies and their government sponsors who argue that we need to mine the deep sea to help fight climate change. On the other side, a growing chorus of scientists and nations is warning that this could trigger an irreversible ecological catastrophe. The decisions made in Kingston will determine which path we take. The treasure on the abyssal plain. So, what is this treasure that's causing such a fierce debate? It's not gold or diamonds. To the naked eye, it just looks like a lumpy, dark rock, maybe a potato. They're called polymetallic nodules. For millions of years on the vast, flat plains of the deep ocean, minerals have slowly precipitated out of seawater around a tiny core, almost like a pearl forming around a grain of sand. The result is what some have called a battery in a rock. These nodules are rich in 4 key metals: manganese, nickel, copper, and most critically, cobalt. These are the very metals that power our modern world. They're essential for building the green technologies we're counting on to address the climate crisis. Electric vehicle batteries, wind turbines, and solar panels. Proponents of deep-sea mining argue that getting these minerals from land is plagued with problems: environmental damage, geopolitical fights, and dangerous labor practices. They pitch deep-sea mining as the cleaner, more ethical choice. The grand prize is a region of the Pacific Ocean floor between Hawaii and Mexico called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, or CCZ. It's an abyssal plain, 4,000 to 6,000 meters deep, littered with trillions of these nodules. One mining firm, the Metals Company, estimates its licensed exploration areas alone hold enough key metals to power 280 million electric vehicles, which is about the size of the entire U.S. passenger car fleet. Of course, that's a company estimate, but the potential economic value is staggering, measured in the trillions of dollars. For decades, this wealth was out of reach. The tech was too hard, the cost too high. But that's changed. A new generation of deep-sea robotic vehicles is ready to go, and the green energy transition has created a massive demand. The gold rush is no longer a distant dream. It's a technological reality waiting for the green light. And that light is controlled by the delegates meeting in Jamaica, the plan and the regulator. This is where the story shifts from a treasure hunt to what some critics have called a planetary heist. The plan is brutally simple. Giant robotic machines, some bigger than a combine harvester, would crawl across the seafloor, sucking up the top 4 inches of the seabed. These collectors would vacuum up the nodules, along with all the life that has called this ancient habitat home for millennia. The nodules are then pumped up a riser pipe several kilometers long to a ship on the surface. There, the slurry of rocks, sediment, and deep-sea creatures is separated. The nodules are kept, and the waste, a plume of sediment and pulverized marine life, is pumped back into the ocean. Overseeing all of this is the International Seabed Authority. The ISA has a dual, and some say contradictory, mission: to organize deep-sea mining while also ensuring the effective protection of the marine environment. It's meant to be the planet's steward for the deep. For more than a decade, its 169 member states have been slowly trying to negotiate a mining code to govern the industry before it starts. But the process has been stuck in disagreement, as many nations and scientists argue we just don't know enough to write safe rules. Then, in 2021, the tiny Pacific island nation of Nauru, sponsoring a subsidiary of the metals company, triggered a legal loophole called the 2-year rule. This move basically forced the ISA to either finalize the rules within 2 years or be obligated to consider a mining application anyway. That deadline passed in July 2023. A later target to get the code adopted by 2025 also passed during the ISA's meetings in July 2025 with no agreement. This has created a situation of intense pressure and uncertainty. Mining companies could, in theory, apply for commercial licenses at any moment, even without a complete set of environmental regulations. The gatekeeper is finding the lock on the gate might be broken. The fallout, a silent catastrophe. The central conflict, the question being debated so fiercely in Kingston, is straightforward yet profound. At what cost? What is the true price of extracting these nodules from what may be the last great wilderness on Earth? For decades, scientists have explored the deep sea, uncovering ecosystems both fragile and astonishingly complex. Now they are sounding the alarm, warning that the consequences of deep-sea mining could be catastrophic. First, there is the direct destruction of the seabed itself. Mining machines will not merely collect the nodules, they will scrape the ocean floor bare, obliterating habitats that have existed for millions of years. These nodules are not just inert rocks. They form the foundation of entire ecosystems. Countless species, many unknown to science and found nowhere else on the planet, rely on these structures for survival. Studies of experimental mining tracks laid down over 40 years ago show that the seabed is still struggling to recover, emphasizing just how permanent this destruction can be on any human timescale. The damage, once inflicted, could take centuries or even millennia to repair naturally. Second, the process will create massive sediment plumes. As machines collect and discharge the nodules, they will stir fine sediments into the water column, creating clouds that can drift for hundreds of kilometers. These plumes threaten to smother organisms far beyond the mining sites, clogging the gills and feeding structures of delicate creatures like corals, sponges, and filter feeders. Vast stretches of previously vibrant seabed could be turned into barren, lifeless landscapes, fundamentally altering the deep-sea environment. Third, scientists warn of potential impacts on the global climate. The deep ocean is far from inert. It plays a critical role in regulating Earth's climate by acting as a massive carbon sink. Every year, surface organisms die and sink to the ocean floor, sequestering carbon for centuries. Industrial-scale disruption of the seabed could interfere with this delicate process, undermining one of the planet's most important natural systems for absorbing carbon dioxide. In our rush to harvest metals for so-called green technologies, we may inadvertently weaken a key pillar of Earth's climate stability. Noise pollution adds another layer of concern. The grinding, humming drone of mining equipment will inject industrial-level noise into the deep sea's perpetual silence. Marine mammals, including whales and dolphins, rely on sound to navigate, find food, and communicate. Disrupting these acoustic environments could have devastating effects on these intelligent creatures and ripple through entire ecosystems. Because of these profound and interconnected risks, more than 950 marine science and policy experts have signed a statement calling for a pause on deep-sea mining. As of mid-2025, 38 governments have also advocated for a moratorium, precautionary halt, or outright ban. They warn that rushing into extraction before fully understanding the consequences is not just reckless. It is the very definition of irresponsibility. The debate in Kingston reflects a broader global struggle, balancing the urgent demand for minerals with the equally urgent need to protect the fragile, mysterious world beneath the waves. The decision point: Jamaica and the geopolitical wildcard. This all brings us back to Jamaica, where tensions over deep-sea mining are reaching a critical point. The negotiations over the mining code at the International Seabed Authority, ISA, remain at a standstill. The July 2025 session ended without a consensus, and no new target date for adopting the rules has been set. The next major session is scheduled for March 2026, when the fate of the deep ocean will once again be on the agenda. For many observers, the delay underscores the complexity of governing a frontier that is both fragile and potentially lucrative. However, what was once a technical debate over regulations has now erupted into a full-blown geopolitical drama. While nations attempt to navigate the multilateral process in Kingston, some are taking matters into their own hands. In a move that stunned the international community, the United States, despite not having ratified the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea and therefore not being an ISA member, has forged its own path toward deep-sea mining. In early 2025, an executive order was signed to fast-track deep-sea mining under U.S. law, creating a legal pathway for domestic companies. Seizing this opportunity, the Metals Company, a Canadian-registered firm, announced it had applied for mining licenses directly through the United States. This attempt to bypass the ISA entirely has provoked sharp criticism from member states around the world. At the ISA meetings in Jamaica, representatives from the African group and other nations condemned the move as a clear violation of international law and an assault on the principle of the seabed as the common heritage of humankind. In response, the ISA Council launched a formal inquiry into the metals company's actions in July 2025. This investigation could result in the suspension or even termination of the company's existing exploration contracts, highlighting the high-stakes tension surrounding this issue. The standoff now pits the slow, multilateral approach centered in Jamaica against the unilateral ambitions of a company leveraging the regulatory framework of a global superpower. The justification for mining has also evolved. While green energy remains a factor, policy documents and public statements increasingly emphasize the strategic importance of these minerals for defense and military applications, particularly in countering geopolitical rivals such as China. The world stands at a crossroads. The decisions made in Kingston will determine whether the deep sea is governed by a collective, science-driven agreement or becomes a new Wild West, dominated by the most powerful in a reckless scramble for resources. The stakes are enormous, encompassing not only minerals and profit, but the rule of law, international cooperation, and humanity's responsibility to its planet's last frontier. We are on the precipice of extending human industry into the largest and least understood environment on Earth. The polymetallic nodules of the Clarion-Clipperton Zone are the result of geological processes that unfolded over millions of years, creating a unique and fragile ecosystem. The decision we face is whether to destroy it in a matter of decades. The argument that we must sacrifice the deep ocean to save the climate on land presents a potentially false choice. Many experts believe that better recycling, new battery technology, and a shift to a more circular economy could meet our needs without opening this Pandora's box. The secret gold rush is now exposed. The meetings in Jamaica are no longer just bureaucratic procedures. They are a battle for the future of the ocean. The outcome will leave a permanent legacy. Will we be the generation that plundered the abyss for short-term gain? Or will we be the one that had the foresight to pause and protect the common heritage of humankind before it was too late? The clock is ticking, and the world is watching Kingston. The fate of an ecosystem that covers half our planet is being decided now by a group of people in a room in Jamaica. And most of the world doesn't even know it's happening. This isn't some abstract problem for the future. It's an active choice we're making right now. The first step is simply to be aware. Share this story so these decisions aren't made in the dark. Learn about the companies pushing for mining and the countries calling for a pause. Major environmental groups like the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition are on the front lines, providing updates. And corporate pressure can make a difference. Companies like BMW, Volvo, Google, and Samsung have already pledged not to use deep-sea minerals in their products. The question we should all be asking is the demand for new materials worth the permanent destruction of a world we're only just beginning to discover?